Preference. Here's a quick review of what we learned from the first video. We talked about feasible consumption bundles. We talked also about just feasible consumption bundles. We then talked about the budget line, which is just a set of all just feasible consumption bundles. The next thing we're going to introduce is the notion of the budget set. The budget set is simply going to be the set of all feasible consumption bundles. So whereas the budget line was the set of all just feasible consumption bundles, the yellow line shown here, the budget set will instead be the set of all feasible consumption bundles. Hence, it will be this red shaded area under the budget line, and it includes also the budget line itself. So this red shaded triangle plus the budget line is precisely the set of all feasible consumption bundles. And this is precisely what we call the budget set. Now, let's recall also that the consumer's problem was to decide, given income and prices, how much of each good to buy. We are now going to reformulate the consumer's problem. We are going to restate it as follows. The consumer's problem is now simply going to be that of picking one particular feasible consumption bundle. Or in other words, using the graph that we've introduced, the consumer's problem is equivalent to choosing any one point in the red shaded area. In other words, the consumer's problem is to choose any one bundle in the budget set. So this actually makes a lot of sense. We can think of the red shaded area, which is the budget set, as being the set of all possible or feasible choices that are available to Chris. And so out of this set of possible or feasible choices, Chris is going to choose one particular bundle. And now the next question is, how is Chris going to go about making his choice? There are infinitely many bundles in this red shaded area, so which bundle exactly is he going to choose? This is exactly where preferences will come into play. We'll look first at the weak preference relation. Say we have a consumer named John, and he likes coffee at least as much as he likes tea. What we're going to say instead is that John weakly prefers coffee to tea. So weakly prefers to here is just going to be our fancy synonym for likes at least as much. So when we say that John weakly prefers coffee to tea, all we mean is that John likes coffee at least as much as tea. We're now going to introduce a piece of notation. Instead of writing in words that John weakly prefers coffee to tea, we're going to write in notation, coffee is weakly preferred to tea. So this symbol that we've just introduced here is called the weakly preferred to relation. And you can probably tell that it looks something like a squiggly version of the greater than or equal to symbol. Well, it turns out that there's actually going to be a very close analogy between the weakly preferred to relation and the greater than or equal to relation. So in the case of the greater than or equal to relation, we might have, for example, 5 is greater than or equal to 3. We can actually decompose this statement into two possible statements. When we say that 5 is greater than or equal to 3, what we mean is that either 5 is strictly greater than 3, or 5 is equal to 3. One of these two statements is true. Or in this case, it's the first statement that's true. Analogously, when we write that an object X is weakly preferred to an object Y, what we mean is that one of the following two statements is true. Either X is strictly preferred to Y, or X is equally preferred to Y. Either one of these statements is true. And in the case of the is strictly greater than relation, we have a symbol for that relation. Similarly, in the case of the is equal to relation, we also have a symbol for that relation. Analogously, we're going to introduce two pieces of notation for the is strictly preferred to relation and the is equally preferred to relation. The is strictly preferred to relation is going to be written as a squiggly version of the strictly greater than relation. It's going to look like this symbol here. The is equally preferred to relation, on the other hand, is simply going to be a tilde. And there are actually several ways we can express this last relation in words. When we write that X tilde Y, we can say that X is equally preferred to Y, or we can say that X is just as good as Y, or we can also say that John is indifferent between X and Y. The next thing we'll define is the notion of a pairwise preference. Here's John, and here's his coffee and tea. Now, it might be the case that John strictly prefers coffee to tea, or it could be that he strictly prefers tea to coffee, or he is indifferent between coffee and tea, or none of the above is true. For example, it might be that John has never heard of what tea is, so he has no idea how he can form a preference. or he just doesn't have an opinion, he doesn't care about coffee or tea. So, I hope you agree with me when I say that one of these four statements must be true. This is as a matter of logic. The fourth statement is really a catch-all statement. It covers all other possibilities. Hence, one of these four statements must definitely be true. And now we can define what a pairwise preference is. John's pairwise preference over the pair of objects coffee and tea is simply going to be a specification of which of the four statements below is true. More generally, a consumer's pairwise preference over any two objects, call them A and B, is simply a specification of which of the following four statements is true. The consumer strictly prefers A to B. The consumer strictly prefers B to A. The consumer is indifferent between A and B. Or none of the above. Let's look at a few more examples of pairwise preferences. An example of a pairwise preference of Chris over apple and banana is that he strictly prefers apples to bananas. An example of a pairwise preference of Kate over dog and egg is none of the above. And finally, an example of Jane's pairwise preference over chocolate and vanilla is that she's indifferent between chocolate and vanilla. We are now finally ready to define what a preference is. We have a beautiful consumer named Jane, and she faces a set of three objects: a dog, an egg, and a fish. What we mean by Jane's preference over this particular set of objects is a complete specification or description of her pairwise preferences over every possible pair of objects in the set. Now, how many pairs of objects can be formed from this set of three objects? Well, let's see. We could have dog and egg, that's one pair. Dog and fish, that's another. And finally, we could have egg and fish. So altogether, we can form three possible pairs of objects from a set of three objects. And so to properly state Jane's preference over this set of three objects, we need to do three things. We need to specify her pairwise preference over the first pair of objects. We need to specify also her pairwise preference over the second pair of objects. And finally, we need to specify her pairwise preference over the third pair of objects. Let's now give an example of Jane's preference over this set of objects. Jane might strictly prefer dog to egg, strictly prefer dog to fish, and be indifferent between egg and fish. What we've just given, this collection of three statements here, is precisely an example of Jane's preference over this set of three objects. So to repeat the definition of a preference, we say that Jane's preference over this set of three objects is simply a complete specification or description of her pairwise preferences over each of the three possible pairs of objects. So what we just did a moment ago was to give precisely one example of such a preference.